We've seen hell repeat itself continuously. We keep stumbling in that stuff. No matter how much people think that we are advancing, we still see hell. And Gaza, just like Ukraine, is an even stronger argument of hell because there was no real peace ever. It was an arrangement that ultimately just went catastrophic. You see people moving towards, how do we resolve this? And so what sort of compromise will we see? What sort of arrangements? And so the elites at the top level get together and they come up with some solution, which is really a truce. It's not a fundamental getting at the essence of where the local people are intimately involved in the process of peace and resolution of their frictions, but in fact at the highest level trying to stop the killing for a while.
Joining us now on Open Book is General Romeo Dallaire. He's a former Canadian senator. He's a global human rights advocate and, of course, a best-selling author. The title of the book is The Peace, A Warrior's Journey. And General Dallaire, it's an honor to have you on the podcast. You've had a distinguished career in the military, of course, in politics. Before we go into the book, I'd like you to tell our audience a little bit about your background, sir. How did you end up in the military and out to the other side to the political system?
Dad was joined the Army in 1929, and so went overseas, married a Dutch girl. I was born there. We lived in military camps, and we had cadets at school, military cadets, and so lived in wartime housing and all. It doesn't give you much option to looking elsewhere, and so wanted to go to military college and achieve that. In fact, my archives of my work are now at West Point, and then did a military career from there, and really wanted to lead people into operations and to do things and see things get done. And so that's what kept me going all those years.
But despite the fact that you've been in the military, sir, you are a big advocate for peace. You're somebody that believes that the best solutions are diplomatic ones. And this book is a very compelling book. Why did you decide to write this book now?
This is my fourth book, and I wrote at the operational level of war in Shake Hands with the Devil that described the genocide in my command there. I wrote at the tactical level when I wrote They Fight Like Soldiers and Die Like Children, which was on child soldiers, of which I subsequently have continued to work and got an institute in my name. We're working in Africa and Latin America, and now opening up in Asia. Then the third book was Waiting for First Light, which was the fact that I was injured psychologically with the experience of the genocide. So I needed something strategically, and I thought there was a way of getting at this arena of conflict and returning conflicts and mass atrocities and massive abuses of human rights and so on by looking at it from a higher plane. And so it's taken nearly 10 years to pull all these things together and to say that ultimately the aim of the exercise is not for humanity to survive the future, but to thrive, and that means to shape it. And what we've been doing over all this time, even since Westphalia, is we've been satisfying ourselves with truces, but not really looking at the fundamental premises of lasting peace, and peace that makes people able to concentrate on their future, their maximum potential, and with the need to marry or communion with the planet, permit us really to truly thrive. And so with technology, young people highly engaged, women being treated as equals in this male-dominated world where everything has been created by men, all the institutions, women have got to come and influence this whole leadership philosophy and be as equals. We got a chance of pulling this off over maybe the next couple centuries.
I love it, I want you to tell our viewers and listeners who may not remember their European history, what was the Treaty of Westphalia and what was the impact that it had?
In fact, it was an extraordinary treaty that was done after there was 100 Years' War, the 30 Years' War, and the nation states were not in existence. I mean, it was all a whole bunch of dukes and lords and princes and kings, and you just kept beating the living daylights out of each other under very egocentric and power-seeking leadership, all male-dominated, to gain the best advantage where greed and power dominated. Well, they finally got together in Munster, Germany, and I was one of the annual speakers in the exact room where they signed this thing over 300 years ago. And that's what created the foundations of the nation state, of sovereignty, of, in fact, nations and nationalism. And it proved to be an effective tool, certainly after the reforms of thinking and philosophy of the Italian Renaissance in particular, at the end of the 15th century. And so here we get an opportunity to go for lasting peace, and all we find is that people are still at each other's throat for a variety of reasons, and in so doing, we end up by making truces, agreements, but never really looking at the essence of what the frictions created as a determinant for going to slaughtering each other, gaining more opportunities, and in fact, not living in peace, but living with a constant hope that a truce will hold. Well, that means you're always looking at your 6 o'clock to see whenever somebody's going to blow it apart.
So it's an interesting concept because in the book, you basically are saying that peace is not necessarily the absence of war. I guess that's more or less what a truce is. So define peace for us. Tell us what it would mean for us to live in peace.
It's an interest. Your questions are very perspicace, because essentially what we finally have been stumbling since the end of the Cold War, where we thought we had peace, which was truly, I mean, that's a perfect example of a truce, with the Russian scenario going on, the Gaza scenario going on, with, in fact, the inability of nations to come together to resolve conflicts and ultimately even prevent them. Your request of what really peace is, it's been moved in the international sphere slowly to human security, right? How does the human being feel secure? The individual human being. And both economically, politically, is in its opportunities of maximizing its potential, and in a world where, in fact, the principle of all humans being human, and not one human more human than the other, actually becomes a reality, fundamentally through respect and the equal opportunities for all. So in peace, you are actually living without any premise, any structure that could permit frictions that do exist. I'm not negating that, but going to a state where, in fact, they end up in conflict, and we continue to, as we've done for millennia, slaughter each other. And so I truly believe that by integrating capabilities of the security force, security dimension, political dimension, diplomatic dimension, nation building, the NGO world, humanitarian side, if we brought all that together into a reinforcing plan, a plan that builds on the synergy of all these different capabilities and disciplines, we could actually strive towards something that will not only prevent conflict, but actually not only stop a conflict, but actually prevent it. And once we've done that, then we can look into the future and shape it under the premise that we have built a foundation for not only humanity, but also for the planet and humanity to become one, moving to a secure future.
I think it's brilliant, sir, and I appreciate you joining. I want to go into a little bit of what happened in Rwanda, and you saved 32,000 people, negotiating with rebel leaders, trying to get the UN member states and the international media to intervene. Obviously, you felt that you could have saved more if some of your pleas didn't fall on deaf ears. But tell us a little bit about that situation, and then, if you don't mind, sir, I'm going to, as you're talking about that, I want you to talk a little bit about what's going on in the Ukraine and Gaza, because as human beings, these things have the same DNA, sort of, right? In terms of this intransigence and this people stuck in certain positions to the point where they're ready to commit violence towards each other.
Yeah, and let me bring a bit of the book into this also, because we're talking about that. And the whole premise of all this starts with my experience in a catastrophic failure of humanity, where in fact we did not treat all humans as equal. That we decided that sub-Saharan Africans didn't really count, and so nobody wanted to come and take any risks in trying to prevent, let alone stop, an actual genocide. I mean, the slaughter of the million people in 100 days, and 4 million were displaced, all based on an ethic premise of greed and power and not wanting to share power. So in that context of a country that doesn't have resources, it is a country that simply has a population. It was not deemed worthy of intervention and reinforcement by anybody else, although at the same time in ex-Yugoslavia, if you remember in those days, in the early 90s, we poured 67,000 troops into that, and I couldn't even keep 450 where I was. What really we've been going through is that we've seen hell repeat itself continuously. We keep stumbling in that stuff, no matter how much people think that we are advancing. We still see hell, and Gaza is a perfect example of hell, just like Ukraine is an even stronger argument of hell, because there was no real peace ever. It was an arrangement that ultimately just went catastrophic. From there, you see people moving towards, how do we resolve this? And so what sort of compromise will we see? What sort of arrangements? And so the elites at the top level get together and they come up with some solution, which is really, as I said earlier on, a truce. It's not a fundamental getting at the essence of where the local people are intimately involved in the process of peace and resolution of their frictions, but in fact at the highest level trying to stop the killing and for a while. So that's purgatory, and that's in fact the part of the book. And so Gaza is a sort of a purgatory that's turned into hell, because what we've created is a generational war. It's a war that's guaranteeing that the generations that are young, the young people and so on, how they've been used, abused, and destroyed, what they've seen, what's left, what the opportunities that don't exist anymore, they are going to move again towards the conflict and the use of force. And so you're going to keep building generational wars with periods of times where you have a sort of arrangement that makes the high level people satisfied, and the general populations don't have to duck so much. But we don't then move to something far more draconian, where in fact we want to cross and go through this ring of fire that Dante does into heaven, which he then still has to work at to actually see the options of what does peace really mean, and what is the cost of it to implement it, and what is needed to be done, and the perseverance and the ability to sustain the will that humanity seeks to find that element that will give them the sense of permanence, of serenity for them and future generations. And if they can get into that situation, then they can stop worrying about how to defend themselves and start, in fact, blossoming into building a whole of humanity, which we can now Skype nearly, in a time where that has never existed before, in real time. We could actually pull all this humanity together, and with the synergy of it, actually go not only into a mode of peace and lasting peace, but also of going beyond ourselves. Going actually beyond this planet. Because once we have this lasting peace, what do we do with it? We actually could thrive into the universe. And that's fundamentally what humanity is seeking. So I do not believe in the Darwinian perception of power and the strongest, and as Kissinger has sold, go to the negotiation, for peace, but bring a big stick. Power, greed, all those components of ego, particularly male-dominated ego, even misogyny, have all been factors that have prevented people from sitting around and looking at fundamental peace. And unless women are in there at 100% with men to reconstitute those institutions that have been built by them, religions, governments, the social networks, construct of economic network, that we have women traits and abilities and leadership into the future, we will never really grasp the depth of what peace can be. But there is a shining light behind all this. And only what it is that the millennials, the A's, the Z's, they can see globally. They're already global with the communications and so on. And they are hypersensitive of this need for communion with the humanity and the planet. And they're going to start pushing the other generations above them aside because we're too slow and inept at bringing the innovative solutions to actually move to peace and not be satisfied with truces.
It's very, very well said, sir. I really appreciate it. So we went through your book. We come up with 5 words for every one of our authors. So what I'm going to do, it's a little bit of a word association. I'm going to say the word that's out of your book, and then I want you to give me a 1 or 2 sentence reaction to the word.
Well, that's going to be a challenge, that's for sure.
All right, so you ready?
Yeah.
No, I'm sure you're up for the challenge, General. Okay, ready? I'm going to say the word leadership. What comes to mind?
Leadership, humility, and the fundamental premise that you respect other human beings, and through that, you maximize your potential to be able to move the ambitions of all towards a positive result.
See, when I read your book and I thought of the word leadership, I always thought service. I see you as a servant leader. You're somebody that likes serving people. So despite the fact that you're in a leadership position, you're always out there trying to help people.
Well, my dad told me the night I left for military college, and he had, he was a World War II vet and a career soldier, and he said, "Romeo, remember," he said, "you're joining a service. Don't join if you expect people to say thank you, but remember you're there to serve them." Amen.
All right, ready?
Yeah.
Next word is warrior. I say the word warrior. You say what?
If you had asked me that 30 years ago, it would have been the warrior ethic and the ability to maximize power and to discipline use of power in order to achieve the missions that are given to us from a democratic elected government. That would have been my sort of work. And my love for the Templars and the Crusaders comes from the fact that they were warriors, but they had another ambition also. They were humanitarian, trying to help people. The Templars, the Hospitaliers, and so on. They saw something more than to be a knight and a warrior. Today, to me, a warrior is someone who, yes, can use disciplined force in extremists, but there is a whole margin of capabilities that are inculcated into the military structure, the ethos of the military, its doctrine, its philosophy of leadership, that can help it move in synergy with other disciplines like the NGOs, the humanitarians, the diplomats, in building a new construct of how we solve problems and anticipate them versus the stovepipe systems that we have today. So warrior is, in extremis, warrior ethic may be required. However, there's a whole, not to be too vulgar, piss pot of elements that can be done and can be accomplished by the security forces in synergy with the other disciplines.
Okay. I say the word humanity.
Humanity, we are living in an extraordinary time because we can actually really communicate with the whole of humanity. So when we talk humanity, we have humanity as a state of mind, of philosophy, of being an empathy for other human beings. That's the sense of humanity. But humanity, in the way I've been articulating, particularly in the book a lot, is the fact that we can bring the whole of the human race in respect with each other as equals, all humans being human and equal, into a whole new framework of how we seek the guidance of evolving our situation into lasting peace.
What about the word war? I say the word war.
Yeah, war. War is the most evil deficiency of humanity. War, to me, is the weakness of humanity to bring innovative solutions and be conscious of what, in fact, ultimately the aim of being alive and serene and safe means. So war is the easiest way to find some sort of a compromise or some sort of a solution, but ultimately a war has absolutely no lasting peace to it. A war, on the contrary, is an instrument to destroy humanity and to perpetuate the frictions that exist.
Okay, how about peace?
Peace is the ultimate aim. Peace is the reason why all these human beings are on this planet, because we are not they're here on this planet to survive the planet and the universe and so on. We're on this planet to thrive. We have been given extraordinary capabilities that we have barely touched upon, that we can in synergy move us beyond this planet. And so I believe that peace is the ultimate aim to move us beyond ourselves. And that can be achieved if we create a communion with the planet and truly, truly feel serene and safe in a lasting environment to concentrate on a much higher plane objective for all of us.
Well, listen, sir, it's been fascinating to interview you. It's been an honor for me to have you on Open Book, our podcast. The title of the book is The Peace, A Warrior's Journey. Just heard a brilliant rendition of what that book is about from General Romeo Dallaire. He is a former Canadian senator, a global humanitarian, and obviously a military leader that all of us are very proud to know. Thank you very much for joining us today on Open Book.
Well done, Tony, and excellent questions. Congratulations.
I appreciate it.